Hey there, welcome to the Game Artist Podcast. My name is Ryan Kingsline. I am the founder of the Game Art Institute, where we train artists for the career of their lives. In this podcast, we interview amazing game artists to see what makes them tick and see how they got where they are today. So sit back, relax. I look forward to sharing their journey with you. All right, folks. So we're going to jump right into it. Oh, we got Unreal on. So we may have a couple of issues with the screen because Unreal eats up bandwidth like mad. But anyways, welcome. Today is really, for me, it's a really incredibly important conversation. And for my students, I think that this is a very important conversation for us to have. And this is my first time meeting Simon. So, this is going to be really a great moment for us to get to meet and then to talk about what I see as not necessarily the next movement in this industry, but it's really just this has been going on for a while and this is the underlining thread. That's what I really want to be talking about today. So Simon, man, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So why don't you tell us first what you do so people have some context for all this stuff that we're going to talk about, because there's a lot of great things to talk about, but some of it might be scary and some of it might be exciting. So why don't you tell us what you do so people can understand that first?
So right now I work at an indie studio called Exin. It's in Belgium. And I'm mainly doing like environment art and also some little Houdini things here and there. Yeah, and I'm also in my free time exploring more about Houdini and proceduralism because I'm quite interested.
Yeah. What interests you in that? Because that's actually the topic I want to get in with you, is this whole notion of proceduralism. Hugo Bayer's been talking, a lot of people have been talking a lot about this, but like what interests you about proceduralism?
What sort of like got me into it was this video where it was like showing like how you can do things faster. Like we had this on school, a course where you have to like build a sci-fi scene and you place everything manual. But then I saw a video of Houdini where they just generate a scene, a sci-fi scene, and I was like, wow, you don't have to place manually your assets anymore. You can just generate them.
Right.
And when I looked more into it, it was like, this is just awesome to just don't have the struggle of manually building the scene, but like having a tool that helps you laying out the basics of your scene.
Whose tutorial, do you remember whose that was or video you were looking at?
It was a GDC video of Houdini 2017. I can quickly search for it if you want to.
Yeah, let's pull that up for people who are watching this live so they get some context, because there's several procedural talks. I think that's been Houdini's kind of entry into this, which get that kind of yes. Yeah, see, this got me excited too. This and I think it was Anastasia's Village.
The Lake House.
The Lake House. Yeah, and that's 2 years ago.
This is also like 2017. Like I can definitely recommend if you want to learn something with it, you need to have a nice introduction into like how I can make procedural pipe.
Okay.
Like this just starts from scratch in the video, and then later on at the end you have like this sci-fi level being generated. I don't know exactly where it is. But yeah, somewhere here where you just draw a curve in Unreal, and the layout is just automatically being made for you. And that was the first thing that I was like seeing that got me really excited for Houdini. Because you can see like everything is just changing by changing the value, and the layout and models are being randomly placed.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I wanted to get into a bit. But before we do that, let's set the stage so people understand kind of a little bit about what we're talking about. Because I think especially 3D artists are always hearing about the next thing. And from my perspective, because I've been in the industry about 15 years now, Houdini has been that perpetual next thing. It's like everybody's like, oh, Houdini, it's the next thing. And I'm like, dude, I heard that when we were on Octanes, when the computers cost $100,000. So this might be the next thing, but it is a long ass time coming. So let's talk a little bit about the underlying pressures here. Like, number one, we're talking about proceduralism, and proceduralism is how would you define that?
Personally, I would say it's some sort of like a tool or a system that is like reusable and can be easily, by changing values, you change your output. And yeah, it's just like for me, it's mainly like something that's reusable, like the house generator. Like or something else generator, and you can just use it from one project to another project, and you can even update the system later on. Just something that,
Got it.
yeah, not more manually, I would say, something that a system does something for you.
And what's the problem with manual? Because that's where I think the rubber hits the road here. Because let's say I'm an environment artist. I've been in this industry 10 years. I hear people talking about Houdini and they're like going to cut. In fact, you know what? I had a conversation with the CEO of a game company just the other day on this. And I was telling him about the Lake House tutorial in Houdini and how I'm training my students on this. And his first thing was, does it create interiors? You know, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if the lake house actually has interiors. but I was like, well, then there was the Promethean AI, and I'm like, I'm sure it does interiors. You just have to build the system for it. But what is the pressure that makes us even consider procedural as opposed to manual? And the ultimate kind of the conflict that I see here that I think has to be addressed for us to really embrace proceduralism is, where's the art? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see kind of what you mean.
Because if I'm an environment artist, I've been doing this 10 years. I'm like, there's craft to what I do, and now you're telling me that Houdini's just going to make it for me. Or, what's going on with that?
It also depends on sort of like how the tool is made. So, like, first of all, like if you want to do a big open world game like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry,
Yeah.
Chances are high they are using procedural generation. But for example, the tree itself can still be manually made by someone, and then the tool like plays it for you. So you can also like take this to houses, like you can make the houses and the tool plays it for you.
Yes.
You can also see it that way, like you still have the control of like, I really make a prop, I really make my tree or a car, but you can easily then, if you take this to larger scale like open world games, the placement can then be like open world a procedural, but you also like have, of course, control, and like afterwards maybe some procedural situations didn't work out well, and I can maybe then manually delete the car that was super weirdly placed.
Right.
Or I can just move it around. Like there is still some control if you add it yourself, of course.
Okay, I got it. So is it fair to say that there's an economic incentive here to some extent, as in games are going open world? What do you think is the reason that we're doing this? Like what's the pressure you're seeing from studios? Why are they adopting this? Because they have to change pipelines too, right? That stuff costs money.
Yeah. I think we are in the change maybe now to this more procedural pipeline. But in the end, you're making a pipeline that's, I would say, quite flexible and could be reused for the next project.
All right.
Like
cool.
You can see that with the, for example, designer materials, where they make like procedural materials like bricks, and then they can easily change the amount of bricks and so on, and then they can reuse it for the whole project or the next project.
Right. That makes sense. And along the lines of what you said, the notion of proceduralism, which kind of ties into the question of AI, and there's some fear around that, which I think is reasonable because, how much of it's being left for the artist. But I think what you mentioned about it's how the tool is built is important. And I have an example that I'd love your comments on too. When I worked at Pixelogic, I helped in the development of it and all that stuff. And one of the things that was core, it was one of our, and I didn't fully understand it at the time, but it was one of our core principles, was that there had to be a manual element to it. Like there were basically two ways to create humans back then, two main ways. You use DAZ, it creates humans, and it's all done for you. Or you use ZBrush and you have to literally create your human from a ball of clay. And ZBrush is by far and wide that's the darling, that's the baby, that's the one that's really cool, because when you get in and you start making it, you feel it, you make decisions, even though it's doing a lot of work for you. It's not like Daz where it's like girl, big breasts, small waist, boom boom, move some sliders around and you've got like your next character, right? There's an element where we're creating it. So in this Houdini stuff and the stuff that you're seeing, there's still an element in which somebody is making decisions.
Definitely. There is always someone who has to decide if what's being generated, if it's good enough.
So what are these skill sets that you think are important for people to come into Houdini with? Because somebody may come in and be like, oh, that's cool. I'll just make something, throw some sliders around. But I mean, I've seen enough of these things and enough of these things done by people that are just programmers to know that, there's more to it. You can't just throw a programmer in it and be like, hey, make me a cool city. They'll make you a crappy city.
Yeah, but it's also like Houdini has, in my opinion, like multiple features. It's like a software where you can do a lot. So like you have like the procedural aspect and generation of models, but you also have like particles. So for programmers, they are going more to the like something more programmer procedural generation and making something faster. But it's also, I think, approachable by artists. But you definitely need like base understanding of how we can make a prop, what is a normal map, and so on, just like these basic things.
Yeah.
And then you definitely need some more technical requirements, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you know how to do some coding, like Python, for example, or something else, you can definitely benefit from it. But if you want to do some like more basic procedural generation or something that's rather small and can be simply done by just not coding, that's also possible. Yeah. But so sometimes it's just, you can see it more as like, I can build a system with no code in it, but the person who knows more about coding can build the same system with like 5 nodes. Meanwhile, I needed like 50 nodes, for example.
Right. Yeah, I get that. It's almost like the builder inside of Houdini is code. It's like Visual Basic. You're just moving snippets of code around. And people that are more advanced, number one, know the better function. And then number two, know how to expose or get in there and use certain aspects of it to kind of piggyback and create more robust code snippets almost. Does that jive with what you're saying?
Yeah.
Cool. So what's the first thing you built in Houdini?
Yeah, there was this level building tools within Unreal. This was like still one of them was in school. Like you can choose a project in the last year. So I can show the quick video of it. So yeah, this was basically inspired on the video I showed you at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where you can like draw a line and then all the models around it are just placed for you. And this is real time in Game Engine, so it's pretty fast in calculation there.
Wow.
So yeah, then this pipe tool to just like draw a line pipe. So this is also like very familiar to what was shown in that GGC talk, but I added some more features in there. Like you saw like multiple rings popping up, or you can just have like this your classic pipe.
Okay.
So you can like build variation.
Okay. All right. And I think, because I didn't see anything in the live chat. Okay, good. I finally got a note. I know I got some environment artists in there, and Sari is going, this is black magic, people. So if we can go back to that section where you just drew a line and then built a hallway.
Sure.
I think all my students need to see that, because that's seriously black magic. But magic is just sufficiently developed technology that it appears to be magic to those of us, right? That's the notion. And I think that's one of the things that's really important about 3D art is, 3D art is evolving so fast. There's so many tools, there's so many changes that sometimes, man, you could be an awesome, very highly skilled artist, but you go out of this 2 years, it's like people are just freaking magicians when you come back into it. Like PBR wiped out a few people I know, just took them right out of the industry. They're just like, I just don't get this. I'm done. I'm afraid this is going to do that for environment artists. Do you agree or no?
Right now, I see it more as a tool, something that's helping you to do something faster instead of like replacing you. Right now, I don't believe that at this point. I think it's more, helping you out.
Well, but did you see the Netflix I Am Mother?
No.
All right, everybody's got to watch that now after this. It's artificial intelligence, and I'll just have to leave it at that. But it hits on Elon Musk's question, which is, what if you have an artificial intelligence spam bot and it decides it's AI, its job is to solve the problem of spam. And it decides that in order to solve the problem of spam, I'm just going to wipe out humans. And there we go. So, the point being,
Yeah.
something can be there to help us, but we have to be mindful, where is all of that help going?
Yeah.
And along those lines, Ryan's got a question. He's asking, how does Houdini help character artists? Because for me, I'm focused on it as an incredibly powerful tool. I know I just threw in some dark apocalyptic stuff, but for me, it's incredibly powerful for environment artists. And I think for environment artists, it's going to be an important skill to have. But how does it fit for a character artist?
Yeah, I definitely agree with it's more environment, like world building focused.
Mm-hmm.
But at the studio, we use Houdini and we of course have a character artist. So he's doing all the retopping there in Houdini, which seems pretty nice, but I don't have enough experience to give my perspective on it. But the retopping seems pretty nice. Or you can also have a polar reducing and still keep your quad topology, for example. That could also something that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Actually, Marcin Kalicki at a CD Projekt Red mentioned that that's what they're doing now too. They actually do UVs and topology in Houdini, which is great because those are the two things that we would certainly want to never have to do ourselves again. Yeah. So how has Houdini helped you in terms of your career? Because I think that's a really important thing for us to talk about too, is I believe it's going to be something that will absolutely it makes somebody a job candidate, but specifically, has it helped you with your job and your career?
For my career, definitely helped quite a lot. I keep pushing Houdini projects and Houdini blog, and I get people's attention because I'm doing something with Houdini and I'm sharing it. And I notice that a lot of people are interested in Houdini, but they don't touch it yet themselves.
Yeah.
So it's we are at the beginning of this Houdini breakthrough kind of. So it's nice to be sort of at the beginning where
Totally.
I would say with sometimes simple tools, people could be excited for that.
Yes.
Where in the future, if I would make a simple tool, no one would care because there are already way better tools or awesomer tools out there.
Yes. That's a great point, because I always tell my students, everything that I have in terms of the power of working from home and teaching and all that all comes from me being at Pixelogic at the right time and being there when ZBrush was brand new and coming out, and I could just sculpt a crappy face and people were like, "Oh my God, teach me how to do that." So, and I'm saying that as a facetiously, it's we always think our faces are crappy, but I mean, now if you want to go out and you want to teach, you want to share, it's people are like, hey, I've seen that already. There's 10, 15, 20, there's 100 awesome ZBrush artists. It's not that exciting anymore, right?
Yeah, you're definitely right.
Yeah, but now this is the moment. And so along those lines, because I was 2 years ago, I was telling people, get into Substance, because I'd kind of missed the boat. I think Substance Designer was 5 years ago. If you got into it 5 years ago, same thing. You basically show somebody how to make rocks on a ground. It's you're a winner. Now it's well, we got 20 plus tutorials on that. So there we go. How does Houdini fit into Substance though, and into the suite? Because I saw you're working with them too.
You mean the Rebel at last here?
Yeah, I saw that. I watched that. I was like, that's pretty cool, because that's something somebody might use some elements of ZBrush for, but it's pretty neat.
So basically, it's simulating debris fall on each other. So it's also inspired on the Ben Wilson video. Maybe some of you have seen it. So for that, I also built a debris generator pieces, so I don't have to sculpt them or anything. I just have something that does automatically this for me, and then I let it fall on each other. Basically, that's the quick run through of it. Of course, then I bake the result in height map and so on.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Definitely, guys, check this out, because I think this would be, if you head over to Simon's Art Station, it'll be really cool. But I think there's a couple of things that I want to hit on here. Is number one, what do you think kind of stops people from Houdini? And then, if you don't mind, I would love to just kind of get a little bit of an explainer. I don't know, you have Houdini up there. Just a little bit of explainer also for people so they know what to think. I mean, not getting into dynamics, because I think you use rigid bodies for this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we start with, what stops people from getting into Houdini from your perspective? Because I was the same. I was kind of, not to put too fine a point on it, I was scared. I thought it was programming. But I literally, within 10 minutes of being into it, I'm like, I'm home. I understand this program. I got a lot to learn, but I mean, I got it right away.
Definitely like varies a little bit on person. But I think the general thing that people have is like either they think it's like super technical and you need like programming skills, or they just don't find these tutorials, or they don't search for the cool tutorials that they are looking for. Because there are like a lot of tutorials out there, but maybe you're looking for something more specific that you don't immediately find, and then you're like, oh yeah, maybe I should just like something nice to like trigger people to like, oh yeah, this is super cool. I need to learn Houdini. Like the same, this actually the same I had with like the GDC video, like the automatic level, sci-fi level. It's like that video was like, damn, that's super cool. I want Houdini now. And maybe some people also need to see some videos like that, and they'll be like, damn, I also want to do something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense, in fact. And it's a big part of companies like that to find that demo project that changes people's minds, so that they get it.
I think soon maybe we will have, like right now a lot of studios are like starting to work with Houdini, and in maybe 1 or 2 years we will have this super cool AAA game being like 70% procedurally generated. And I do GDC talk about it. That would definitely like help people seeing what it can do. So yeah, I think that would be excited to see.
Yeah, that might be the second round, but by then you're pretty vetted, and I think that's the incredibly cool part about this is you're at the front of what I don't see this not happening. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't see this proceduralism. I don't see the power. Everything I've seen with Houdini, this is the next incredibly important skill set to have. Is there anything that would basically turn me into a liar here? Am I missing anything? Is there any reason that Houdini would just kind of like be kind of cool and then peter out?
If you would go for like technical art position, I think Houdini is being very interesting. But for like, we still gonna like, for example, need like material artist or like prop artist or environment artist. These are still important. So I don't think everyone needs to have Houdini under their skill set. But for like some people, it could be like make their profile interesting more if they like learn Houdini and they enjoy it, of course, because that's also important. Yeah.
Matteo, does that answer your question? Because you were asking about how much people need to shift from either traditional or just upgrading or mix. So mix is what I heard from Simon. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it depends on what you personally like want or looking for. I would say definitely try it out, of course, and then see if it's something you like doing.
Yeah, and for me, I always like, and I think it's always important, you have to put those like triggers out there, those trigger words, those trigger skill sets that people are like, you got your core skill set, you're hireable, but then there's this thing that's like, yeah, let's bring them in because they have X. And X isn't, hey, I know how to use Photoshop. It's about 20 years too late for that. I mean, I remember actually when I was going to art school, if you knew Photoshop, you had a job in the game industry. Like 20 years ago, one of my friends barely drew, but he knew the computer and, that was it. He had a job. They were hiring like mad. Now, obviously, that's not the case. Now it's something else. So ZBrush is important, Houdini, all of that. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about Houdini versus Substance. So if we're going to, in fact, let me stop here for one sec. Guys, for those of you who are here live, it's really important to me that you're connecting with this notion of proceduralism. So just give me a quick yes, no, or is it making sense to you, this notion of proceduralism and what we're talking about or not? Because the next question I've got goes into Houdini versus Substance Designer so that we understand the 3D versus the 2D. But I want to make sure that you guys are all understanding just this core concept of proceduralism and the economic incentive that might be there, as Cerise says, helping people kind of prototype games and things like that probably at a significantly reduced cost, because it takes environment artists time to make things awesome. Okay, everybody's got it. All right, so then the next question that I think is important for me to understand along proceduralism is there's Houdini, right? It's cool. I'm into it. I'm jazzed about this kind of stuff now. How does this connect with the procedural trend already happening in materials with Substance Painter, Substance Designer?
Yeah, with this debris example, it's already like doing, if you would do this in Scratch from Designer, this is a pain. If you work a lot with designer, then you know layering shapes on each other is just a pain, because you will always like get intersections with like one brick to another or one piece and another. Won't really look realistic. And this is just one situation where there's just like debris being simulated. You can like do more, like you can simulate cloud in Houdini, then you can like get the cloud information and so on and so on. Like if people get creative with this, they probably can like achieve more crazy results and so on.
If they get in with substance, or if they merge these two.
If they merge these two, like also like Houdini can, for example, like clean up the results, because this is like driven by a height map and so on. So it's like pure tessellation, which is of course not really like game friendly because it requires millions of polys. Houdini can sort of like create a low poly for you automatically if you build a small system for it. So you don't have to sort of like retop or do some special trick. Houdini can be like, oh yeah, this is your height map. I will create a low poly for you so we can get these shapes without having heavy tessellation.
And you can tessellate inside of Houdini, right? You can take a height map then.
Yeah. But in Houdini, it works. You can like write a little code, which is basically saying like, oh yeah, if the point is white, I go up, and if the point is just black value, then I just stay down, which is basically how height maps work, kind of.
Yeah. And then from that height map that's generated, then go through and reduce polygon. Do you have to do a VDB or something like that in between, or?
It depends. I have not like fully researched how you can do this super cleanly. But I did once a test, and I did some like, so I just like project a height map on there, then I maybe do some little smoothing. Then I would like apply already like poly reducing and see if that's good enough in game. And if it's good enough, then it's fine. And if it's not good enough, then I would like just like experiment around with like different types of nodes and structures, like maybe even VDB, if that could potentially be helpful. Yeah, it's just like experimenting until you have something you find that's nice and working, and then you can just save the system and reuse it every time.
Got it. Now, if we go back to your, you have a city generator, I think, right? Building generator. The house generator, even the level builder. So I understand the geometry creation. I get that. How is this connected with the textures and materials, though? That's a fuzzy part for me.
So for the house generator, like here, the materials itself. So basically, these houses are actually made out of modular models that I modeled myself in Houdini. So Houdini, the tool works that it's like placing your model for you. That's how I originally built the tool. If you would, for example, take the lake house from Anastasia, she is like just doing everything procedurally in Houdini. I'm using like your classic modular kit of like a window, wall, door, and so on.
Right.
And I'm placing them procedural.
Okay.
And it's just like,
keep going.
where the models are. Oh yeah, here are just some. So yeah, here's like my window, for example. Oh, it's on my other screen. Damn it. So yeah, so you can see it's like tiling brick made in substance, and the other material ID is basically the windows that I quickly did in substance.
Okay. I
kind of rushed these models through because that was not the focus for the project. So I like rushed quickly through them.
Okay. So this is using a model kit, and the model kit has the geometry and the textures assigned within Unreal. And then since it's just placing it, it's just that is pretty straightforward.
So also like keep control of the artist has still control on how it looks. If they gave a stylized wall, it would have a stylized feel.
Right. And does that mean that this entire side of this building has really one texture if you needed to change the brick to be a little bit redder?
Yeah, I just use, so that's the reason why I'm using like a second material ID. So if I would like go to this brick here, I made some parameters. I cannot exactly remember what it was because it was been some while ago, but I can just make them darker, and then everything It's just dark because they're all using the same material.
Right. Beautiful. So if you need a fuchsia downtown, a little bit of pink.
So yeah, some just like a few settings here and there.
Okay, got it. That's beautiful. And it's really terribly exciting. So do you mind walking me, like, from a beginner perspective, we're inside Houdini. How does somebody get started and not get overwhelmed?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would like recommend like watching some basic video on just like how the UI works and so on. So you know a little bit where everything is. Like in here, you have like the nodes network where you can like place your nodes down, and then you have your parameters and then the viewport. So as soon as you like know a little bit how to control a model and like extrude something or bevel something, then it's like you have a basic, and then from there I would start defining on what do you want to do with 3D. Because you can also like you can do the simulation, you can do procedural houses, you can do anything you want, but it's like define on what you want to do and then search in that direction.
Got it. You know, I think the tutorial that really opened up my eyes was by Rohan Dalvi, and it was a table, just a simple table demo. I thought it was really cool. He modeled it the old school way and he modeled it the procedural way.
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. All right, so we're in the nodes. We have a box. What? Keep going. Talk to me here, because I think people here, like, it gets a little confusing. What do you do with the box?
What do you do with the box? So if you want to model something, I can recommend you putting it here into a model, and then it's just like any other software where I sort of like would select the edges, and when I hold C, I have like this menu, which is can be it's like used in Maya, for example. So you have also like menus, and I can just like click on bevel, and I have a bevel. So that's like basic modeling that I would do like every day at work. It's like modeling like basic shapes and so on. Like I can move this. So as you can see, it's like quite viewport interactive. So some people might think that it's a node-based system, so I have to do a lot of things with the nodes. It's like, no, I can just select a face and then extrude it, and then there's a handle here, and if I scroll, I can just decide how much the inset is going here. But I can also, of course, go in here, do everything manual, how much I want to do my values. And of course, there are also, each node will have some nice settings. Like in here, I can actually save out the front group. So this is the front group right now. And I can, for example, save this information into a group. And this group can be used later on. And this is then a more procedural way of working, where I can use this group information to like do another procedural step.
And it just creates the notes. That's actually really cool. And just already feels much better than Quad Draw in Maya. That's one of the things that's been kind of interesting to me, is seeing how rampant, and rampant's the wrong word. That puts a negative connotation. How much of an influence Maya and Max have. And I'm not trying to like flame war anything, but you know, these are huge software companies by a huge pieces of software done by a huge software company monopoly. Did I say that? And and Houdini's this little tiny / not little amazing program that does all of these cool things, and I'm sitting here going like, why don't we know this?
Yeah, as soon as I kind of find out about Houdini, I kind of fully switched to it. Like the only software I mainly worked was 3ds Max because we learned it in school. So we kind of were forced to use 3ds Max. But as soon as I discovered Houdini, I was like, hey, I could just do this easily in Max than in Houdini, or even better. Because in school we had like kind of sometimes a joke when like 3ds Max was crashing quite a lot.
Yeah.
So with Houdini, it felt like more stable, and like slowly on for a few months, I have been slowly transitioning into a workflow where I don't need another software to model something. I can just model it in here, or I can wrap it in here, and so on.
Is this as robust as I mean, I know when people are modeling, like let's say their Blender or their 3D modelers, people who do this for a living. I mean, it's like hotkeys, it's muscle memory, and they have to produce fast. So I'm not talking about those modelers and what they have to do, because what they have to do relates to them making a living, and that's the important thing, not some software. Outside of that, is this a complete tool set for us? For people who are at the beginning, like, do I need to dive in and deal with Quadron modeling in Maya, or is Houdini just as robust? For the most part.
In my opinion, it's good enough for me, but for some people, it might be like they can maybe missing features that they have in Blender or another software that they really liked and they don't have in Houdini. That could be like, for some people, can be maybe a deal breaker. But for me, it's sort of like I don't make that much complex like geometry or shapes. So for me, it's like it's good enough.
Okay, I got it. That's perfect. That's what I needed to know. Because I know people that modelers, because of that's what they do all the time. I know they have real specific needs. But if I'm talking to a student right now and I'm like, yeah, of course, you need to learn Max, you need to get into all of that stuff. But is it fair to advise them to also start to explore these tool sets for modeling things like, prop class? Is it going to give me the basics to make that happen?
Like, it could be interesting to do that. But yeah, it also depends a bit on what you want, exactly what you want to do with it. Like, you're not going to sculpt in Houdini because it's no way possible.
Yeah.
But it can be interesting to explore and have learn a few basics, because for some people it really requires a different approach on how to work with it. Like, I also had this transition where I had to sometimes rethink on how do I make this model, because it's node based. Like, sometimes you need to work in this node network and do something here instead of doing everything in the viewport, because you cannot do everything in the viewport. You can do some basic modeling, but for something more complex, you will need to understand some of the basics of Houdini, which requires sometimes a bit more technical skills.
Okay. And then can I trouble you for one more look and just tell me if I'm reaching too much, because it might be too complex what I'm asking for. But if you were to build like a simple version of that generator, the debris generator.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like, just something that shows like 5-10 nodes, just so people understand how is that something you could do?
Yeah, sure. The setup is super easy.
I just want to put out that rocket science is also easy to rocket scientists.
Okay, but I will like slowly go through it.
Okay, thanks.
So first, I just can just start with like a box. I have like a shortcut for this, which I do like Shift-1, and I have a box. Shift-2 is for sphere, and so on. It's like just some shortcuts that I add. But you can also like press Tab and then B box. But I like shortcuts, so save you time. So then I have a box. I can either like model a brick from this. So you saw me using the tool, and automatically these red box with arrows appeared, so I can manipulate the shape.
Right. Yep.
So, and then actually I built a tool called edge damaging. And this is also the power of Houdini, is you can build your own tools and tool sets for something you want in the future. So for me, it's like automatically like damaging up the shape. So it's like you build this once and I can reuse this for the rest of the time. But I can also keep it just like something that's just possible. I can also just like bevel the edge here. Like, oh yeah, this is a little damage on the brick. Then like to simulate, I probably need some more bricks, and I will just spawn a sphere and I will copy 2 points. So it's kind of in the name itself. So I will copy primitives or my model here to the points of the sphere. And then you have basically this. This already gives us some nice result, kind of. So looks interesting. But of course, I would like to maybe do it like this. And then the next step I would do is like, I want to let them fall on each other. So Houdini has at the top here, it's called shelf tools. And these are basically tools like things that have been set up for you. So you can just click these things and they will be created for you instead of having to manually construct them. So I can go to rigid body. So you can just find them easily by finding here rigid body. And I can select this sphere, click on rigid body, and automatically Houdini creates this network. So this is a dot network, so it's for simulation. I will not go in detail. And if I press play now, my bricks are falling. And then the only thing I need now is a collision, of course, because it's just falling into nothing. And I can just say grand plane. And then I would just need to position my bricks better and press play, and we have the result. Oh, I forgot something. No. So yeah, this is like the very simple setup that was used. That's quite similar to what I used for like the debris on the art station.
Yeah. Now, how do I make those bricks better? You mentioned you had a tool, the edge damage tool.
I had a tool for that. We can just look in the tool. I got this information from a video and then I tweaked it a little bit. So in here, I can just open my tool and you can see. So it's basically like a Boolean, like these shapes are being Booleaned on the mesh. And what I do is I remesh the model. So it looks something like that. Then we smooth it out a bit, adding some correct normals on it. And then the mountain node. This is a really nice node. And this is basically creating a random shape based on the type, noise type.
Yes, understand.
And then we just Boolean and subtract, intersect the shapes.
Okay, so can you go to that top node then again? So we go. So basically, you're taking the node, the box, you move it off into a separate channel, and then in that separate channel, you kind of smooth it. You remesh it so that it's got different tessellation to it. You smooth that, and then the mountain is really kind of the key to it. The mountain pushes these things out in different areas, and then you're just literally bullying the original shape back into it so that you get the hard edges.
Yeah, so you get like damages here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What I love about Houdini is just I don't know how to say it. I mean, it's just there's logic to this. It's like when I model in other programs, I'm like, this is just like such a waste of humanity. It's just making us like work our butts off. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, that's just logic. Like you don't ever have to do that again. You now have an edge tool and done.
Yeah, it's like once you figured out something once, you just save the system, and then you have it, and you can just be using it later on. Or that's really what I like, and it's also the power of Houdini, where you can just group a node, and then you right click, and then create a digital asset. And if you do this, you can every time I can.
That's awesome.
So I just like typed in test and accept it. And every time I press test, I will see this tool with the sphere in it.
That's ridiculous.
So that's something I really like. It's just like you make something interesting, you just save it. Then if you want to use it later on, then you can use it later on.
That's awesome. Michael's asking, why do you put the null after the input node?
Oh, that's just like for personal structure.
So his output's not going straight into two channels, and it creates like weirdness.
Yeah, for me, just like personal structure, and it's also like easier to branch from this. But yeah, no nodes have multiple functions, but for me, they are mainly structure to like help out sorting the graphs. If I would later on expand this, I can like easily use this one, or what you can do is you can basically reference this. So I can reference this null node to this one. So these do have the same output because they are like linked and referenced to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a super big graph here, and I'm like, I want to add something extra here, it's like, oh yeah, maybe I should like keep my graph clean and just reference the beginning to here also.
Got it. Sort of got it, I should say. I love how deep this program gets. But all right, that done and said, we've had you for about 50 minutes. So let's, guys, let's keep the questions coming. Michael is asking, what's the difference between using modules versus the lake house? And Michael's referring to Anastasia's, of course.
Yeah.
Really just trying to understand, what's the modules. Really, I think you got to look at how Anastasia does it, because I bought her whole tutorial. I was like, I have to understand this. And she's building everything from like putting vertices and figuring out the normal of that vertice and then building, these boxes. But in your words, what's the difference between modules and lakehouse?
It just depends on the person, on what he feels is the right thing. Like Anastasia is also like, I also seen some parts of the tutorial, and it's also quite program heavy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like coding that's going on, but they definitely have advantage of like doing everything with programming. You can like really have control of the whole geometry and so on. But with modules, I feel I could easily reuse the system later on. If I maybe suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, I have this cool idea of an environment where you look over a city, I can just easily reuse the house generator.
Mm-hmm.
Where with like the Anastasia, it's a lake house. It's built to be a lake house, or you can of course make it to something else. But it's built to that architecture. So and it stays there. But in my, it's just use modulus, so you can just the generation depends on your module.
That makes sense. You're using it more for the larger placement of the modular kit, and then you're just swapping out the modular kit.
Yeah. Oh, I can also mention that Houdini has now a built-in house generator. I don't know.
Of course.
Okay, I don't know where it is, but they have it.
Is it under the game dev?
Yeah, it was in the
tool set.
In game development tools, they had like this house generator, or maybe it's called something else. Building generator. Oh yeah, it's building generator. Yeah, I don't know exactly how it works. I still have to like look it up, but it's like they actually have a similar system like me, where you decide the modules. Yeah, you model the modules. What you can do is like you can still use your Blender or Maya workflow and model them in there, and then import them in Houdini, and Houdini just generates the building. But yeah, that's something. If you look into house generation, you can also get this house generator. It might be quite complex.
I ask you to do that. Oh, look at that! Oh my god!
It's a little bit more complex than mine.
Yikes!
But it can do a little bit more. It's pretty cool, but yeah, I haven't figured it out fully yet. I didn't have the time.
Okay. Yeah,
I can also show you my tool working in Game Engine if you would like that.
I'd love it.
Normally it should work. Okay, the scene is a bit dark, but so if you can install the plugin. You need a license for this, of course, but like Houdini licenses. It's pretty cheap compared to others.
Is this for indie, or does Apprentice do this, or do you have to do indie?
You have to get the indie version, which is like around 230 something.
Yeah, I've got that one.
So you just like install the plugin. I don't know where it is, but
for those who are interested in modeling, you can just use Apprentice and export for free, I think.
Yeah, it's possible to kind of export in OPJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to test out Houdini, the free version is definitely a great start, but it has its limitation, of course. And here I can normally, if everything goes right, I think it has to warm up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. So here I'm just changing the seeds of the shapes.
Nice.
And I can get like random buildings. And as you can see, it's quite fast. It's not super slow. And I can make my changes to what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So if I scroll down, you can also see that here are the slots to put in my models. So I can just drag and drop them in here. But I have not assigned all the models yet. It's just for this purpose. I just placed a few. But yeah, you can see a small trash bin.
Oh, nice.
So on.
Some set dressing.
Yeah, because I also wanted to have automatically some props around the house.
Oh my God. Wow, that's yeah. You are welcome. Okay, good. All right, my friend, this is really amazing. So we've talked a little bit about, I mean, this is almost like a Houdini sales webinar, which isn't intentional, but I'm kind of a geek for these things. I think, like it's so important to me that my students have that extra leg up, and so it would be a disservice if I was just like, yeah, just go master polygonal modeling in 3D Studio Max and do the exact same thing people have been doing for 15 years. That's going to help. It's important, but outside of Houdini and Designer, are there any other software tools that you think are important for this whole notion of proceduralism that people need to get clear on?
It also depends a bit if you're like programmer, then it's also, of course, interesting to get these machine learning research and so on. But if you're just an artist, then I would just mainly stick to like exploring some procedural aspects like Designer or Houdini. You can just try to look what it can do for you. Like, oh yeah, I sculpt this high poly rock and I want my low poly version and I want unwraps fast. Oh yeah, I can just use Houdini, poly reduce it and auto unwrap it in Houdini and I'm done.
That sounds nice. Actually, one of my students did that for her UVs, and it was the first time I had seen UVs laid out in Houdini, and they were damn good UVs, Pretty crazy. I was like, holy crap. And then I looked at the nodal network and it was like, I don't know, maybe 12 nodes. Wasn't very complicated. But she's married to a Houdini guy, so that helps.
Probably.
Yes, probably. All right, my friend. Well, this is great. So any words to people who are looking to study proceduralism? Anything that you think is important for them to know before we send them off and on their way to go experience some Houdini and to meet their future mother, I guess, if we can reference the Netflix show?
I would definitely say like give it a try. First of all, like try to find out if the software is something for you, because of course Houdini is not for everyone. Like substance designer is not for everyone, or sculpting is not for everyone. So, but definitely give it a try. Explore in what type of way it can be interesting for your workflow, and if you're more specifically interested in like developing tools, then that's like super interesting, and that's definitely something that could be interesting for your portfolio in the future and so on, because that's definitely something that's becoming bigger and bigger to have these procedural systems. You can definitely like look up some, I think on the website of Side Effects, they have a page where they collect all the tutorials. So you can definitely like scroll through it. You can like filter on beginner level. You can also filter on more game focused and so on. Because Houdini is also used in film. So try to find the right tutorial for you and come up with your own tools and create awesome tools.
Awesome. All right, guys, any last minute questions? Get them out real quick, and then we will go from there. And I think Raphael has a really good question because I've been wondering it myself. Computer system specs for us to be running specifically Houdini, because I think it has a particular way it works with the GPU, but I might be wrong.
Honestly, I don't know too much about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the computer I'm having right here is my laptop that I use on the train. What? And it's not, this laptop is like been since I was a student, so it's like about 4 years that I'm having this laptop.
All right, well, what I hear there is no excuses, guys. Just start making stuff.
Yes. I have like a super low-end graphics card, and I can barely run Unreal actually on this computer. So there's not that much excuse of trying out Houdini.
Okay,
like
cool.
if you start to work with like super high simulations and millions of polys, it might be noticeable that your computer has difficulties.
All right, great. Oh, Michael's saying, do you see proceduralism come in for characters? And he's saying, except for hair. I mean, hair is the obvious. I've been working Houdini hair, and it's pretty cool. But do you see it coming in for characters in any other way?
I definitely think it will be like helpful for maybe some more retopologizing, retopping, and unwrapping. That would be better, faster, maybe even automated for you in the far future. I hope so.
Cool. All right, guys, we were kind of heavy on Houdini. Have we sold you? Are you guys ready to go get your free version?
Get it now.
And then post, go get it now. And then post in the community your first project. Just put it in the art discussion, I think would be really cool, or the critique. But that was my goal today, was to introduce you guys to this. And like, for example, I'm any programming class I try to get my daughter into it because I want my daughter to meet our future overlords before me so that she can put in a nice word for me. And Houdini, I think, is going to be this just really cool way, that's tongue in cheek, but Houdini is going to be a cool way for you guys and myself to just get in and start to understand machine learning from an artist perspective and AI before it becomes just a programmer kind of deal. I mean, it's just a programmer deal right now, but Houdini is this great link for the artist, I think. So, all right, guys, no other questions. I think you're in good shape. Ryan, I'm actually thinking about the procedural armor and elements. Like, I can imagine placement. It's a bit of a beast, though. I don't think it's going to be that's even remotely as easy as buildings. Not that that's easy, but that'd be cool. All right, Simon, man, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to chatting with you more. And thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's exciting. This is for me. I'm geeking out on this stuff. I'm getting into it. I'm like, there's so much power. And that corridor example you showed me, that's just like that. I agree with Sari. That's some black magic stuff there, man. Congrats.
Yeah, that could be definitely the GDC video, a good video to start, where it's like a little bit information about everything.
Yeah, totally. So start in the GDC, the sci-fi guys. All right, my friend Simon, take care of yourself. Folks, I will see you in the community and have an awesome time. And yeah, Matthew, this is recorded, so it'll be posted in the guild. All right, take care. Thanks again, Simon.
Thank you.
All right, ciao.
All right. So I want to thank you so much for being here, for taking the time, and for listening to this podcast. And I want to ask a couple of things from you. Number one, make sure you leave a comment or you rate this on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever it is that you're getting this. That's going to make a big difference in helping us get the word out and get people to know who we are. All right. The other thing is I want to make sure you know where to find us. So you can head over to www.gameartinstitute.com, where you can learn about our flagship program, which is the Game Artist Bootcamp. This is designed for those who are really looking to move the needle on their career and really lock in that job. You may have gone to school and learned a bunch, maybe haven't learned a bunch. But at the Game Art Institute, the primary focus we have is the very specific industry skills the triggers that you really need to hit in that job interview. What are the specific things that they're looking for? That's what we're going to be training you on. We're taking applications right now for environment artists and for character artists. So make sure you head over to www.gameartinstitute.com and apply today. That way we can have that conversation, make sure this is a fit for you, make sure that you're a fit for it, and if everything is perfect, then we will sign you up for that right away and get you into your training and start moving the needle on your career. All right, thank you so much again for being here. Take care, have an amazing day.